Today, we're talking all about season 2 of Love on the Spectrum, which I personally loved. And we're going to cover 5 lessons that we all can learn from Love on the Spectrum. Let's get to it. Welcome back to another episode of the Turn Autism Around podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Barbera, and I have been in the autism world for over 25 years now. First, as a very confused and overwhelmed mom when my son Lucas started showing signs of speech delay, and the day before he was 3, was diagnosed with moderate to severe autism. So I am, despite having a PhD and being a behavior analyst and an RN and very busy with online courses and all the things, I am very much a reality TV fan. And so when I heard about Love on the Spectrum, actually a few years ago, I think it was even before COVID, they had the Australian version. And my friend, Dr. Carrie Magro, came on my podcast, and we can link that in the show notes. And we discussed Love on the Spectrum, the Australia version. He is, he's actually a consultant with Love on the Spectrum season 1 and season 2 that was filmed out in, I believe, California. So I've been a fan. I've been a fan of the Australia version of Love on the Spectrum. Last season, I loved it. And season 2 of Love on the Spectrum from the United States is really my favorite. Some of the things I really liked about this, and then we're going to get into the 5 lessons this season, is that it definitely pulled in some of the people that were featured on season 1. It pulled them into season 2, and it was just really fantastic. So let's get to the 5 lessons, and there's multiple lessons, and I'm just pulling this out after binge watching all 7, believe it's 7 episodes in season 2. So it's on Netflix. It's very easy to download those and, watch them on a plane, which is what I did. So lesson number 1 is that people with autism want, need, and deserve love, no matter where you're on the spectrum. I think there's a misconception that all children and adults who are autistic are not affectionate and don't want to be touched. Now, there are some individuals that are very sensitive to touch and they don't want to be touched. But my son Lucas, for instance, he was always warm and cuddly with me, and he still likes hugs, he's very warm with people, and even people that don't like to be touched. It's probably certain circumstances, or anything can be paired or repaired and desensitized to. So just because in the past people didn't like to be touched doesn't mean that in the future they won't like to be touched. But if you're brand new here and you want to listen to my journey, you can go all the way back to episode 1, where I talk about the lessons I learned both as a parent and a professional in the autism world. And we can link that episode 1 in the show notes. Hey there, it's Mary, and I'm just breaking in to let you know about a special offer we have just created. So it is a 5 days to more talking, do-it-yourself mini course. You can start it today and get through the content and really see hopefully a dramatic increase in language. We have a special rate right now, 50% off. And if you use the coupon code podcast when you're checking out, you'll get an extra $10 off. This is for a limited time, so get all the details at marybarbera.com/5 days. And don't forget the coupon code podcast. Now let's get back to the episode. Okay, so lesson number 2 is that, which if you've been here a while, if you've been in the autism world like I have for so many years, you know that the spectrum of autism is very, very wide. And this show, Love on the Spectrum, only depicts certain individuals. These individuals have to be conversational. They have to be able to make phone calls, go on dates alone. So my son Lucas, for instance, he's in his late 20s and he can't stay home alone, he can't go out alone. So obviously he wouldn't have the cognitive ability or language to be featured on a show like Love on the Spectrum, which is fine. He doesn't have um we're his guardians. He needs 24/7 supervision and care. Um, However, he there are many guests I've had on the show. Dr. Kerry Magro, for instance, I had on the show, and he would be um, he's in the role on Love on the Spectrum, like I said, as a consultant. He has his doctorate in education. When he came on my show years ago, he was talking about looking for love, and I'm happy to report that from his postings recently that Dr. Kerry Magro has found love. Um, and so he is a consultant, but someone like Kelly C., who was featured with her mother, Susie, for an interview, uh, Kelly is driving. She is living independently. She is actually dating someone for years now, so that, there's such a variety. I also watched a really great episode with Eileen Lamb was hosting an podcast for Autism Speaks, and she had on two of the actors or featured people on the show. One was Danny Bowman, who was featured in both season 1 and season 2. And Eileen Lamb also interviewed, in addition to Danny, she interviewed Jennifer Cook, who is a dating coach. I believe she's a psychologist, that was part of the show with talking to Danny and um, other featured people on the show about like intimacy and those sorts of things. So both Eileen Lamb and Jennifer Cook were both diagnosed with autism themselves after their kids were diagnosed. So that's an interesting thing as well. So Danny Bowman is a great character. I didn't realize this until I Googled her last name, but she's actually an actor, lives in California, I believe. And that episode's really good to highlight some of the things that we can learn from Love on the Spectrum. So I think point number 2 or lesson number 2 is that, the spectrum is very wide, and that the show really supports consultants, and dating coaches and people on the spectrum in lead roles as the participants in the Love on the Spectrum, and then also the consultants and the coaches and that sort of thing. So I am a big fan, and I think it really does illustrate like a certain type of person, although all of the leads in the show were also very different and kind of spanned a big gamut too of their abilities. So lesson number 3 is that communicating and building relationships with strangers is hard. And especially for these individuals on the spectrum who have probably difficulties with language and difficulties with sensory needs. Plus, in most of these cases, zero experience or very little experience with dating. So, you couple the no experience just with typically developing kids and adults who have no experience, and then you add on the language issues or the sensory needs or the social difficulties, and it really does highlight how difficult it is to really start a relationship and start communicating with strangers. Lesson number 4 is during the conversations, and this was probably highlighted by Jennifer Cook, and as she coached the individuals on the spectrum, is that when we are starting conversation with a stranger, we should ask questions and plan activities that are interest related. Like one of the characters, Connor, was into animals, or so they planned a trip to the zoo. And I may be messing up who was who in the show, but if you're interested in animals, going to a zoo is great. Also, zoos and things like that are great too, because it's not loud and overwhelming. There's an ability to talk. It's kind of low paced. Um, and then if you can comment on animals which you're interested in or have some knowledge about, that can be fun. The other thing Jennifer said, which Danny and Jennifer highlighted on Eileen's Lamb's podcast, is, and within the show, is it's okay to be quiet at times and not feel pressured to keep talking or keep interacting, because even for typically developing adults, there are lulls in every conversation, even with strangers or with people that we know and love. And the final lesson, which I think season 2 really did a great job of highlighting, is for people on the spectrum, the important role of parents, family members, and siblings to help these adults. So Danny Bowman, for instance, was shown that she lives with her aunt and uncle, who are very supportive. Connor's brother really helped him with rehearsing and making phone calls, like rehearsing the phone calls so that he could tell one woman that he wasn't really into her, maybe they could be friends, and then making another phone call to start a relationship with another person he met. And then Abby and David, who were in season 1 and in season 2, they actually, and this is kind of a spoiler for anybody that hasn't watched, but they fell in love in season 1 and continued their relationship. And they went on an African safari with the support of Abby's mom went along, and David's 2 sisters went along. And so I think Love on the Spectrum, especially season 2, did a really good job of highlighting like the support systems that were part of these individual lives. And I give it 5 stars for sure. And if you haven't watched it, I definitely would recommend going to Netflix, searching for Love on the Spectrum. If you didn't watch season 1, though, I would definitely do that first and then watch season 2. Might be 7 or 8 episodes per season, but it's definitely worth your time when you have the time to watch, if that's something that you think you'd be interested in. Like I said, I'm a fan of reality TV, so this was right up my alley, and I thought it was a well done season for sure. So I will be tuning in to subsequent seasons of Love on the Spectrum, and love to hear your comments. If you've listened, let me know wherever you're listening or watching this. Thanks, and I'll see you right here next time.